Welcome back, everybody, to the Kev BK Beloved podcast. I'm your host, Kev BK Beloved. On today's episode, we will be discussing week one of the NBA season, my quick theory as to why athletes are actually underpaid, and of course, answering the questions from you, beautiful people, including topics such as who's the best receiver in the league, Mike Tomlin and Pete Carroll's coaching ability, and who could be the AFC champion, including Aaron Rodgers? What? But first, James Harden trade. The one time I decide to record podcasts early, knock out all my NBA segments early. I go to sleep all proud that I knocked my workout. Wake up, James Harden got traded. So now we got to go through the trade details and see what he got traded for. So James Harden was traded for a Popeye's biscuit, half a napkin, and a straw. I'm playing around. So James Harden, PJ Tucker, and Felipe Petruzovic, whatever that says, was traded to the Clippers for Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Nick Batum, KJ Martin, a 2028 unprotected first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, a 2029 pick swap, and an additional first-round pick that will be routed from a third team. Third team to be determined, right? And I feel a couple ways about this. From the Clippers side, we're really doing this again? Like, you watched the Houston Rockets with Harden and Russell Westbrook and said, that's great. I want that for my franchise. Not to say that team went bad, but they went to the bubble and lost in round 2. Almost lost in round 1 to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as a baby and old man Chris Paul. Okay. And on top of that, James Harden's still looking for a big contract. Now, I know Steve Ballmer got the Microsoft bucks, but they already have 2 max players over there. And I'm pretty sure Russell Westbrook ain't going to take too kindly to you giving this new guy you traded for a big, large contract, and he had to take a pay cut in the offseason. And also, there's this thing called a salary cap. The new CBA has this weird new tax rules, and this tier and that tier where you get applied a different tax. Read the CBA, and hopefully I'll put some type of visual aid so you can see somewhat of how those rules work, because even I'm confused. From the Sixers side, the whole holdup all offseason we heard was they wanted Trey Mann and the Clippers didn't want to deal him. You still didn't get Trey Mann, Daryl Morey, and it wasn't worth holding it up through the training camp drama before, and clearly you agree with that, because after the kicking Harden off the plane story that happened a week ago, you now say, you know what, forget Trey Mann. We have to get this trade done right now. Get Harden off this team. Good on you. Happy the trade went through. I don't know how much this affects things in the Eastern or Western Conference, to be honest. I don't really think that much differently from either team, other than thank God Harden isn't self-destructing on the Sixers anymore. Shout out to Philly, I guess. If you're watching the video, you can see I currently have my Celtics jersey on. I literally just got back from the Celtics-Washington Wizards game where the Celtics beat the everlasting crap out of the Wizards. I'm trying not to curse early in the podcast. The score was 1,000,000-5. I'm sure I can post the actual score here, but a lot to a little is what the score was, right? And I went because, one, I live in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and I try to watch my team whenever it comes to the area. But more importantly, I believe the Boston Celtics will be able to win the championship this year. Genuinely, like fandom aside, I think that we have the talent and we should be able to get it done. But I wanted to make sure that we could be able to get it done. So I wanted to see it in person to be able to judge, see some flaws, see what's going on. The problem is when you beat a team down by 30 points, kind of hard to judge how your team is really going. I mean, the good thing I can say is twin 30 pieces for the Jays. That's awesome. Great time going out there. There's a lot of Boston sports fans in the DMV. It really felt like a Celtics home game. So that was fun. All right, let's get into the Week 8 NFL Ask Me Anything. Thank you to everyone who submitted their questions. Reminder, if you want to submit your questions to hear them on the podcast, you can submit them before the Monday Night Football game. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. The post will go out. Comment your question there. You can hear it right here on this video. So, who is the best receiver in football between A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill? First and foremost, if the playing field is level, Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams will have something to say about this conversation. Also, this isn't exactly a one-to-one comparison. A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill both play wide receiver, but they don't exactly play the same position, if that makes sense. You couldn't do the if they switch teams, what would happen example, because their roles in their offense are so different. AJ Brown is more of a big body, over the middle / deep threat possession type of guy. That's not to say that he's slow, but that's more so the role that he plays. Tyreek Hill is more of a high flying, versatile receiver, weapon X type that also happens to be the fastest human being on the world. But let's do a quick numbers comparison. AJ Brown, 60 receptions, 939 yards, 5 touchdowns, average yards per catch, 15.6. Tyreek Hill, 61 receptions, 1,014 yards, 8 touchdowns, 16.5 yards per catch. So Tyreek has the better numbers, but that's not exactly why I'm going to go with him in this argument, right? AJ Brown is a top tier wide receiver that you have to double at all times. If you single cover him, it's over. I don't care who you got over there. The problem is you can't do that against the Eagles because Devontae Smith's on the other side. And if you overcommit to play the pass, they'll just run the ball down to throw it on you all game long. Tyreek Hill completely changes the way you have to play defense. You can try to double cover Tyreek Hill, but we've seen him outrun bracket coverage several times this year. He is a game changer that honestly we only seen once in a generation. Calvin Johnson, Randy Moss, Jerry Rice. It's hard to do a one-to-one comparison with Tyreek Hill and other receivers because he's just something different. He's in the class of his own. So I have to go over Tyreek Hill here. Thank you for the question. Can Mike Tomlin and the Steelers keep the over 500 streak alive? The fact that Kenny Pickett might not play and we might get a couple games of Mitch Trubisky here, and my answer still remains yes, is a testament to Mike Tomlin and his great coaching. Of the potential AFC playoff teams, they have the lightest schedule by far. Now, they still have to play the Bengals twice and the Ravens and Browns again, so it's not exactly a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination, but it's the AFC. All the schedules are tough, which we'll cover later in this podcast. But if they can't figure this offense out even a little bit, because it's starting to get a little more bad. If you watch that Jaguars game, especially once Kenny Pickett came out, it was like, wow, y'all can't move the ball at all. This is rough. I don't know how y'all going to survive like this. But I still think it's very much possible for the Steelers to get 9 wins. They have to go 500 the rest of their schedule. I can see it. I say the streak stays alive. Thanks for the question. All right, so this question is long, but to summarize it, comment on the Seahawks' ability to rebuild and could Pete Carroll win Coach of the Year? Well, as far as the rebuild, I got to give credit to GM John Snyder, who was the architect behind those early 2010 Seahawks teams that eventually became the Russell Wilson, Marshawn Lynch, Legion of Boom teams. Every significant player, with the exception of Marshawn Lynch, they drafted. And even having the foresight to trade for Marshawn Lynch, who was a quote-unquote character issue in Buffalo, and to bring him over to Seattle, and they never had a problem out of him since, outside of not wanting to answer some press conference questions, is just, I don't like throwing the word genius around, so I won't go that far, but it's brilliant. Putting the roster the way they did is just brilliant. If you think about it, they built the last historically great defense, and it might be the last one we're ever going to see. The Browns are on a historical pace, but we don't have a nickname for the Browns yet. Great defenses have a nickname, or they're known by the year. Like 2000 Ravens, 85 Bears, the Purple People Eaters, and the Legion of Boom, which easily is the best nickname out of all of them. But the fact that all those key players were drafted by them is a testament to John Snyder. But even after the Legion of Boom era was over, in that time between the Legion of Boom era and Russell Wilson eventually getting traded, they averaged 10 wins a season still. And yes, that includes that last season with Russ, where he ultimately decided he wanted to be traded by the end of the year. And then after that, to immediately the next year, take a journeyman quarterback who everybody in the league wrote off and make the playoffs with him. Meanwhile, slowly rebuilding the defense, slowly rebuilding receivers, drafting Witherspoon, who looks like a dog already, drafting Tariq Woolen in, I think, the 6th round, who I don't want to throw out Richard Sherman comparisons because he's one of the best corners I've ever seen. He's going to the he's going to walk into the Hall of Fame. I was going to say he's going to walk in. They're just going to invite him in. I don't even think they're going to vote on it. Tariq Woolen has that similar 6'3", out of burner type build. It's very similar to the Sherman situation. Not calling him Sherman, but it's similar. Trading for Jamal Williams, trading for Jamal Adams, and I've been very critical of the Seahawks pass rush because that was their most glaring issue last year, and they didn't fix it in the offseason. Well, they made an attempt to fix it now. Literally 10 minutes before I hit record, they traded for Leonard Williams. Again, John Snyder at it again. Pete Carroll, though, is another story. On paper, he has a Hall of Fame resume if you look at the stats and the accomplishments. Consistent playoff contender, won a Super Bowl, went to another, right? But you know what will probably keep him out the Hall of Fame? The fact that the most iconic moment of his coaching career was the biggest fuck up in Super Bowl history because he just couldn't give Marshawn Lynch the ball. He just refused to give Marshawn Lynch the ball. And it's magnified because, what was it, not even a month ago, Marshawn Lynch went on Shannon Sharp's podcast and for the first time in a decade gave an actual answer as to what he thought of the situation. So this isn't going to die for a while. Like this is going to live on forever. There might be 30 for 30s about this. We might get an NFL films about this 40 years. I'm going to talk to my grandchildren about why didn't Beast Mode get the ball. And I'm a Patriots fan, and I'm going to be like, I don't give a damn, grandchild. Malcolm Butler got the pick, and Brady won his 4th Super Bowl. Who cares? Unfortunately, that stain on his legacy is what's going to keep him out of awards like a Coach of the Year. Because again, these are media voted awards, and they're all narrative based. If there was a year for him to win, it would have been last year. It would have been last year because they would have gave him the credit for making the playoffs with Geno. Because they don't just give Coach of the Year to the best coach because that sounds too much like right. They give it to the team they expected to suck but doesn't suck, so they like to give the coach credit for that. But again, because of those stains, it's going to keep Pete Carroll's names out of conversations that honestly he deserves to be in. Thank you for the question. Another Seahawks question. Do you think the Seahawks can hold tight with their schedule and win the division? I picked them before the season to win the division just because I was really skeptical about Purdy. Halfway because of the short sample size and a lot because of the elbow. Almost having Tommy John surgery for a quarterback that doesn't really have a strong arm anyways. Very concerning. And I talked about the pass rush issues. That was my main concern for them before. They just got Leonard Williams, so they fixed it. But the main issue the Seahawks have now is the rest of their schedule is brutal. They got the Ravens, Cowboys, Eagles, and the Niners twice. And I think they play some of those back to back to back. And they haven't exactly impressed in the wins they have this year. They should have beat the Giants by 1,000. I think that game ended up being 21-3. They didn't exactly impress against the Browns either. Kevin Stefanski all but handed them the game. And they almost lost to PJ fucking Walker. Salute to PJ, black quarterback solidarity and all that fun shit. But come on now. So personally, I don't think the Seahawks are as good as the record says they is. And I think as they go through that rougher patch of their schedule, a lot of those flaws are going to start to show up. As bad as the Niners are, at least I can attribute that to injuries for now. And they're going to heal up. They're probably going to come out the bye week a lot healthier of a team. But with the Seahawks, it just seems like sloppy wins and underperforming. The things that we've been accusing the Eagle of all apply to Seattle. We just don't have as high as hope for Seattle, so we don't say it that way. But it all applies. So to make a long answer short, no, I don't expect them to win this division. But you try to find me 7 playoff teams in the NFC and see how far you get. So they're going to make the playoffs. Thank you for the question. How's Bryce Young's development looking so far? All right, let me stat you down real quick. So far, he has 1,202 yards, 7 passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a QBR of 35.2, which is 31st in the league. Let's look at his situation. His best receiver is Adam Thielen, who was cooked 2 years ago. His team, as a team, has 2 rushing touchdowns on the entire season. There have been reports coming out that the front office and ownership and the coaching staff couldn't agree on drafting him versus CJ Stroud. Half the building wants him, half don't. The head coach, who's supposed to be a quarterback guru, just had to give up play calling. So I say all that to say it's a whole lot of chaos going on around Bryce Young right now. That's not to say that he's perfect, because he hasn't been. He's looked rough. But it's not entirely its fault. This isn't quarterback malpractice on the level of Chicago Bears with Justin Fields or the Urban Meyer era with Trevor Lawrence. But it's bad. I don't think we're going to be able to get a fair evaluation of Bryce Young so far. I'm just happy that he's been able to only miss 1 game and stay upright. Especially last game. He got sacked 6 times, and I think he got hit another like 9. He was going through it. Thank you for the question. Who is your defensive player of the year right now? All right, so it's a three-man race between Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, and TJ Watt. I'm gonna stat you down again real quick. It's gonna be a very stat and list heavy podcast. I'll try to provide visual aid for the people watching it. And if you're listening, we're just gonna try our best to keep up. All right, Myles Garrett and TJ Watt are tied for sacks at 8.5. TJ is the only one out of the three with an interception. Micah Parsons has 6 sacks. Myles Garrett has the most solo tackles at 18. Micah and TJ are tied at 13. 4 forced fumbles for Myles Garrett, 2 for TJ, 1 for Parsons, and TJ Watt is the only one with a touchdown so far. So here's how I think it's going to shake out. Micah Parsons' team is going to end up having the best record out of all of them, right? Myles Garrett is going to be on the best defense out of all of them. But I think TJ Watt is going to have the best numbers out of all of them. So who do I think it comes down to in the end? I still think it comes down to Myles Garrett because the way the voting system works sometimes is they'll look at it like, all right, Micah's still on his first deal. He didn't even get a second contract yet. We still have time to give him his award. This is what, year 8, 7 for Myles Garrett. He still hasn't had a defensive player of the year yet. And he's 80 sacks into his career. He's on a Hall of Fame trajectory, and it kind of feels wrong. He doesn't have a defensive player of the year. And TJ Watt, he already has one. Unfortunate as it sounds, he already has one. So it's ultimately, I think, is going to go to Myles Garrett. Thank you for the question. Can the Jets revive their season, and can Aaron Rodgers realistically come back before the AFC Championship? First and foremost, I have to apologize to Zach Wilson. I made an entire video saying that their season was done and how dare they put Zach Wilson out in front of the Jets fans and they deserve better and blah, 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 blah. Shut me right the hell up. Granted, he hasn't been Joe Namath or anything like that, but here they are at 4-3, and he's done pretty much what they needed him to do, which is, hey, don't lose these games for us. Has he been as turnover prone as usual? No. Does he still have a bunch of turnovers? Yes, but that doesn't matter. Here they are at 4-3, but there's only 3 wild card spots. I can't see them winning the division. There's only 3 wild card spots for 5 or 6 teams. Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, New York, Cincinnati, and since we're only at the halfway point in the season, who knows who else is going to sneak in there? So now that I put that list in front of you, how confident are you that the Zach Wilson-led Jets are going to make the playoffs? And the Aaron Rodgers thing, I don't even want to address. Achilles tears are season-ending injuries. They just are. They have been since the beginning of time. And I am not going to believe that the first person to break that streak is going to be the 40-year-old quarterback who doesn't believe in modern science. I would bore you guys to death with my past of working in the physical therapy field for 5 to 6 years, and I've seen ACL recoveries and how long they take. Granted, none of them had Aaron Rodgers' money or access, but to think that he is going to be able to come back in a matter of months and play quarterback in the National Football League, and also assuming that he could come back by the AFC Championship, would imply that the Jets made it, which would mean they got to the playoffs and won 2 games to make it to the AFC Championship. Can't see it. Can't see it at all. Thank you for the question. Will the Ravens hold on to the top spot in the conference? All right, so I'm going to use this as an excuse to do like a whole midseason AFC preview. Not really preview. I'm going to use this as an excuse to do a whole midseason AFC review because I think this is the more interesting conference and I can't wait to really break it down. So the Ravens do have the top spot in the conference, but there's like a 4-way tie and all these teams have a 6-2 record. Ravens are at 6-2. Kansas City's at 6-2. Jaguars are 6-2. Miami's at 6-2. The Ravens, I think, are the best team out of the 4. They have the best point differential. They have the best defense out of the 4. They're allowing a league low 15.1 points a game, which in 2023 is nuts. Lamar is my leading candidate for MVP. I'm biased. I live in Maryland, so obviously I want them to lead all the success in the world. And the other 3 teams all have glaring issues. Miami is yet to prove they can beat a good team yet. We'll check back in after they go to Germany and play Kansas City. We just saw Kansas City not score a single touchdown against the worst defense in the National Football League that allowed 70 points 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whenever the hell they played the Dolphins. And the Jaguars, although they're humming now. They're on a 5-game winning streak. The Jaguars are on the way. It's really hard to believe that the Jaguars are going to be the team that knocks off the Ravens and gets the 1 seed. But here's the fun part. All these teams either will play each other or have played each other. And that includes some of the wild card teams that we got right now. So the number 1 wild card team right now is the Buffalo Bills. They are at 5-3. And then there is a 4-way tie at 4-3 of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We talked about them earlier. Cleveland Browns, New York Jets, spoke about them earlier, and the Cincinnati Bengals, who we'll talk about them later, but Joe Burrow is back. And they're gonna stack some wins before it is all said and done. So the AFC looks as stacked as possible right now. And since we're getting a lot of these matchups head to head, by the end of the year, we're going to have a lot more clear of a picture as to who's who stacks against where, and all that there. As far as the Ravens, to directly answer your question, selfishly, I want them to keep the number 1 seed, because here's my dream scenario. Last week of January, Ravens have the 1 seed, M&T Bank Stadium for the AFC Championship, Kansas City coming into town, Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. I will be in attendance. I have a former college teammate that coaches for Kansas City. I'm not even going to ask him for a ticket. I have another former college teammate that works for the Ravens. I'm not going to ask him for a ticket. I'm just going to show up. I'm going to pay my hard-earned American dollars to go to that game because, God damn it, they deserve it. I can't wait for that to happen. I pray nightly for that to happen because my Patriots suck, so obviously they're not going to make it. So selfishly, yes, the Ravens are going to be able to keep that 1 seed, but the rest of the season is treacherous. They still have to play all their division opponents again. They're destined to split with the Bengals because they always split with the Bengals, so they probably drop that one. They're going to get their lick back against the Steelers. That's a given. They're getting a lick back. And the Browns, either Deshaun Watson gets his shit together or is completely self-destructed by then, or they're running it back against PJ Walker at that point in the season. You tell me which one you think is better. Either way, I think the Baltimore Ravens leave that game with that win. But the AFC is going to be incredibly interesting for the rest of the year, and I personally can't wait to see how it unfolds. Thank you for the question. What happened to the Niners, specifically the star-studded defense? This is a very, very spicy question, by the way. Well, they just got a little more star-studded. They traded for Chase Young. But for the losing streak, I just want us to dig a little bit deeper. Lost 1, they allowed 17 points to PJ Walker and the Browns in the pouring rain. And they picked PJ Walker off twice. He didn't score a touchdown. And Brock Purdy gave them literally nothing the entire game to work with. Next game, Kirk Cousins torched them. No way around that. They weren't able to get any pressure on Kirk Cousins. I think they sacked him once and pressured him only one other time, which is rough for a team that has Armstead, Javon Hargrave, and Nick Bosa on it. And last Sunday, Joe Burrow and the Bengals coming off a bye week, they're a buzzsaw right now. They're clicking. Joe Burrow's back to scrambling. Again, we'll get to the Bengals later. I'm as you can see, I'm very excited about the Bengals. We'll get to the Bengals later. But yeah, they were beating the Bengals on last Sunday. So as far as what happens to the defense, I do think the 49ers are a team, unfortunately and fortunately, that are kind of a single cell amoeba. One minute aspect of this team is not humming, then they're completely thrown off their axis. That's why when the team has the injury issues that they have during Kyle Shanahan's tenure, their seasons have gone to complete shit, which leads to them having high enough picks to draft Nick Bosa too. But when it all comes together, they end up making the Super Bowl. They end up going to an NFC championship, which they went to 2 years in a row. And they lost one because Jimmy Garoppolo on a game-winning drive. Come on now. And then last year they lost because Brock Purdy and his elbow just, Clearly they agree with you that something went wrong with the Niners defense, or else they wouldn't have traded a third-round pick for Chase Young. They're going into a bye week now. And then after that, they're going down to Duval to play Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. Now, if they walk into Trevor Lawrence's house and they get beat like they stole something, then I'm going to ring the alarm. Full-blown blaze. Something's went wrong. They are in deep trouble. They're going to be like 5-4 at that point. And then they're going to have to play Seattle. It's going to get rough. They still haven't played the Eagles yet. So, yeah, if they lose badly to the Jaguars, similar to how they lost to the Bengals, then I'm going to panic. For right now, let them rest on a bye week. We'll get back to them. Thank you for the question. Who has the most impressive win this week? So the Bengals are the easy answer because they beat the most impressive opponent in the 49ers. And again, we'll get to the Bengals in a second. Again, super excited about the Bengals. Love the Bengals this week. But most impressive, Will Levis and the Titans. Specifically, Will Levis came out and said, you know what? They keep talking about this 2-quarterback system, this platoon shit. Fuck that. I'm going bombs away. The moment he came into the game, straight down the field, Will Levis came to ball. And I respect that wholeheartedly. Especially, I'm a sucker for the whole chip on the shoulder, they didn't believe in me, look at me now type of story. I'm a sucker for that. I'm sorry. And the fact that he was sitting in that draft room all night long when he was suspected to be a top 5 pick, ended up not going till the second round, came in, everyone was talking about he didn't look that great in training camp. Oh, he's so weird. His girlfriend left him. And to come out and just ball game one like that, that's so impressive to me. So the award goes to Will Levis. Shout out to Will Levis and the Titans. Granted, I know the Falcons aren't the 85 Bears. I know that for a fact. But that's not a bad defense. They're not playing the Broncos. Like, their Falcons are a decent defense. And he went out there his first game ever and carved them up. And he's short of CJ Stroud. That's the best performance a rookie quarterback has put on this year. And he did it straight out the womb. He did it right onto the field. You got to respect it. You got to respect it. Thank you for the question. Now we can get to the Bengals. Can the Bengals complete their gauntlet and make the playoffs? They started 1-3 this year. Joe Burrow had the bad calf. They started 1-2 last year. Joe Burrow off the gallbladder. They started 3-1 the year before. But if you remember that season, that was Jamar Chase's rookie year where he's dropping the ball. They're barely winning games. It's looking sloppy. They're barely escaping, and it's looking, and then they ended up going to the Super Bowl that year. This is what the Bengals do. They piece it together as the year goes on, and it works for them. It stresses me the fuck out, and I'm not even a Bengals fan, but it works for them. I think after that bye week, being able to get to the bye week at 3-3, and then coming out after the bye week, and then beating the most talented team, arguably the most talented team in the NFL, that badly, that has to do a lot for the confidence. That has to do a lot for the psyche. And sneaky, I know everyone talks about Joe Burrow and everyone's hyping up that offense. Defense coordinator Lou Anarumo for the Cincinnati Bengals, Big Lou, Staten Island Lou. The numbers may not show it because the Bengals aren't like top 5 defense and this, that, and the third. But when it comes to big games and shutting down big offenses and keeping them from ruining the game, I don't know how many defense coordinators I'm taking over Big Lou. The Cincinnati defense shuts shit down when they need to. And spoiler alert, because y'all know if you're watching this, or maybe you don't, I do a preview for every primetime game. The Bills and Bengals play each other on Sunday. I'm picking the Bengals to win that game. And it's less because of Joe Burrow. Obviously, he has something to do with it, and that offense is looking great so far. It's because this defense is opportunistic and is great at creating turnovers and great at getting off the field on third down. Josh Allen going to give you some opportunities now. They going to give you all the opportunities in the world to get you off the field and sometimes put the ball right in your chest. I said earlier, they always split with the Ravens, so they're going to get one off them. They got Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Cleveland again, and Kansas City on the rest of the schedule. Patrick Mahomes has still not beat Joe Burrow in the regular season. That still hasn't happened yet. I know they got him in the AFC Championship last year, but he still hasn't beat him in the regular season, so we can't count on that. Pittsburgh's offense is self-imploding. Eventually, they have to beat Cleveland, right? Like, this can't continue. Like, at some point, they're going to have to beat Cleveland. And at that point in the year where it's going to start getting a lot tighter, seeding is going to start to get important, I think that's the time they finally pull it off. So I think 10 wins gets them the 7 seed. Not just them. 10 wins is the bar for the AFC 7 seed. In fact, there's probably going to be a team that has 10 wins that's on the outside looking in for the playoffs, we're being honest. And if they could push it and get to like 12, maybe 13, 13's asking for a lot because they'd have to go, what are they, 4-3 right now? Try and do some math. Hold on. They'd have to go 8-2 the rest of the way. That might be asking for a lot. But let's say they do. That is quite the journey to end the year. And honestly, I wouldn't put it past the Bengals because this is what they do to end the year. I'm very happy to see the return to form for the Bengals. Welcome back. Welcome to the 2023 season. I can't wait to see how this goes. That is the last of our questions. Thank you so much to everybody that submitted it. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to get into the NBA talk. As far as week one for the NBA, just a quick little recap. To NBA GMs everywhere, I just got a quick question for y'all. Actually, a quick reminder. So there's this guy that plays in Denver, the Denver Nuggets. Maybe you know him. Where's number 15? Very large Serbian man by the name of Nikola Jokic that won 2 MVPs in a row 2 years back and just won Finals MVP last year, along with winning the Finals, obviously, because he won Finals MVP. And it seems like none of the Western Conference GMs made any attempt to try to stop this man at all over the offseason. Opening night against the Lakers, the team that the Nuggets swept on their way to the finals. Jokic goes out there and gives them a casual triple-double. I think he went 29, 12, and 11 or something like that. At no point did Rob Pelinka go into the offseason saying, maybe we should get a couple more centers. To their credit, they tried to sign Christian Wood, but come on now. Christian Wood don't got nothing for Jokic. The Warriors, the reason they lost to the Lakers was because they didn't have enough size. To make it to the finals in the West, you have to go through the Nuggets. There's no way around it. They didn't do anything to stop Jokic. So I really got to ask, guys, what are we doing? Like, how did nobody prepare for the Serbian monster that exists in Denver? How did nobody prepare for this? At least the Phoenix Suns, right? The Phoenix Suns said, you know what? We're not even going to worry about defense. We're just going to try to outscore them. So they said, we're going to get all the offense we can, bringing in another 30-point scorer, well, hypothetical 30-point scorer, Bradley Beal. And now their second or third option is Kevin Durant, who's one of the greatest scorers to ever live. There were concerns whether Devin Booker can play point guard or not. Game one of the season, he assisted on the last 7 possessions. I think we can go ahead and put that to bed now. I think he got it. But in general, I just don't understand how all these GMs didn't go into the offseason thinking, we must do everything in our power to make sure Jokic doesn't run through the Western Conference again. Because right now, I don't see anything that's going to stop that from happening. You go back to the early 2000s, the Shaq era, right? Another dominant center and my personal favorite player ever. There were guys that Shaq could be able to claim on his taxes because NBA teams had to sign big bodies just for the sake of getting 6 fouls on Shaq. You do nothing else except get in the game and hack a Shaq. That's your job. You serve no other purpose. Jokic is 2 MVPs in and just won the finals last year. And there's been no adjustments to any of the rosters. I guess he just has to run through y'all again to make you realize that you have to deal with this problem. Anyways, I guess that's enough on Jokic. Next, we're going to go to another foreigner that plays center in the Western Conference. This one's new. Victor Wembanyama looks about as good as advertised. Game one, couldn't keep out of foul trouble. Adam Silver didn't send a call down to the refs like, hey, man, I know we got the issue with refs not calling the game fairly and all that. Throw all that out the window right now. We need Wembanyama on the court. Anything short of punching a player in the face, do not call a foul. We need him on the court for as close to 48 minutes as we can get him. But for the time he was on the court in this season opener, oh, baby, he looked as good as could be. He blocks mid-range jumpers. He contests 3-point shots from the other side of the court, from the top of the key to the free throw line. If you are taking a shot and trying to score in any way, shape, or form against the San Antonio Spurs, you must always be aware of where Victor Wembanyama is because he is always a threat to send your shot in the other direction. The first win they did get against the Rockets in overtime, he ended up going, I believe it was 21, 12, and 10, something along those lines. It looks like we got it good with Wemby. There's a lot of weirdos that are saying, oh, he can't hold up. Oh, it'll be too frail. You know what they should do? Shut the hell up and enjoy the show. We get to watch an alien. And unless you root for a conference or division rival against the Spurs, which they haven't been good in almost a decade, so I don't know why you would still be a rival of theirs, all you need to do is enjoy the show. That's it. You go out there and you root for the alien to do as much alien shit as you can. No one plays 82 games anymore, so you might not play all 82. but you root for the alien anyways, so we can enjoy the wildest highlight packages in the world. All right, we got Jokic, we got Wembanyama. Got to get to LeBron. What is an NBA recap if you don't talk about LeBron? Night one, they had him on a minutes restriction, which everybody made a big deal out of. But the way I see it, we are in uncharted territory when it comes to LeBron. The LeBron James that is playing 40 minutes a night for 70 to 80 games a year, that guy's gone. I know athletically he still looks awesome. He's always going to look great. He's LeBron. But for people that think he hasn't took a step back at all, I want you to pause this. Leave a like actually before you leave. Pause this, go to YouTube, and look up the first Cavs run LeBron James highlights. The first one, not the second one when he had Kyrie. The first one where his best teammates was Eldrunas Ilgauskas, or however you say his name, right? You'll see his head at the top of the backboard, not the rim, the top of the backboard when he's leaping up. Almost 40-year-old LeBron can't do that. And that's not a fault of LeBron. Nobody that age has been able to do that, period, in the history of the sport. Since James Naismith himself looked at a peach basket and decided to throw a ball in it, nobody LeBron's age has been able to produce the way he is already at the start of this year. He started the season after the tip-off, jumping on top of the scorer's table to save a ball in bounds. Now, was it necessary to do that? Probably not. Was he doing it for attention? Probably. But hell, he got a point to prove. There's one picture going around social media right now where he's all the way off the ground and his waist is at like KD's head trying to bat a pass, and he's almost 40. I say all that to say, the thought that Darvin Ham is like, hey, man, we're trying to make a finals run here. Maybe let's not play him 35, 40 minutes on game one. How about a nice 32? That's not that crazy. We can't call Darvin Ham an idiot for that. That's a pretty sane idea. Yeah, they lost game one, but they probably would have lost anyways, if we're going to be honest. And if you got to sacrifice a couple games to make sure that LeBron is actually available in April, because if you look at LeBron's injury history from the time he came into the league until he got to the Lakers, for the most part, as clean of a bill of health as you can get, no long-term injuries, no anything. The moment he got to the Lakers, what was that, 5 years ago? So that's early to mid-30s. Moment he got to the Lakers, it's a groin, it's a foot, it's a back, it's a hamstring. He's getting older. I know it's hard to accept. I love LeBron too. I think he's the GOAT and all that fun shit. LeBron sexuals, I know y'all take this type of shit to heart, but it's okay. He's getting older, and that is fine. But you got to take care of your guy to make sure that he can go through the season. So a minutes restriction is not the craziest idea in the world. Last point, and then we'll get off of NBA. Damian Lillard on the Bucks looks as good as advertised. I can't even sit here and lie. I'm not going to make up any excuses or try to talk my way around it. He looks as good as advertised. Game one, he came out, gave him over a 30-piece, closed the game in the fourth quarter while Giannis sat there and deferred. It looks crazy. The Giannis and Dame pick and roll already looked unstoppable, and it's game one that it looked unstoppable. So I can't imagine what it's going to look like in April. Counterpoint, that is a two-man team. If I ask you right now, is it more likely that Chris Middleton plays 25 games or 65 games? Which one are you picking? And if you're honest with yourself, even if you're in the heart of Milwaukee and you live in the stadium in the bathroom, you got to be honest. The answer is 25 games. Brook Lopez getting up there in age, and most of his worth is going to be rim protecting, playing cleanup because they really have no perimeter defenders. Some people say Giannis, but Giannis is better served as a help defender coming off from that defensive dunker spot. I'm sure there's a better technical term for that, but we're going to call it that for now. Coming off of that spot and playing cleanup and swatting other people's shots in the orbit as opposed to playing on the outside and going one-on-one with somebody. That's not really where he's best served. He can do it. Don't get me wrong. He's a multiple-time defensive player of the year, but that's not where he's best used. And I don't know if anyone here has watched the Portland Trailblazers in the past 5 years, but to put it kindly, Damian Lillard isn't exactly Dennis Rodman out there. So if you're a guard that's pretty capable of scoring, a Steph Curry, a Trae Young, et cetera, just insert scoring guard here, or even a wing, you're going to get off against that Bucks team. The goal is you still got to stop them from scoring. So I still like my Celtics chances against them, but we're not going to really find out that until April. Yeah, we play them 4 times in the regular season, but that doesn't really matter. We'll see them in April. All right, so earlier I teased that I was going to make a case that athletes are actually underpaid, and I know somebody probably went, oh, these spoiled athletes, they make too much money as it goes. Well, don't worry. I got you. I read an article from Front Office Sports that said, hold on, let me get the exact quote here. The Golden State Warriors currently have the highest worth in the NBA at $7.7 billion. Why does that mean athletes are underpaid? I will tell you why. In 2009, the Golden State Warriors were worth $315 million. Why is 2009 important? Because that is the year that Wardell Stephen Curry II was drafted to the Golden State Warriors. In the span of Steph Curry's career, the Warriors went from being worth $315 million to $7.7 billion on the back of Steph Curry's success. So you would think, all right, so naturally, if we can make a direct link to this player's success and the high evaluation of the franchise, we should be able to trace how much this player is getting, and it should be a fair portion. Steph Curry's career earnings as of today is $354 million. Upwards of that. It's like an extra 700,000 behind that, but you get my point. Not 7.7 billion. So we're not even scraping 1% of the amount that he has raised the worth of that franchise. And you could say, oh, it's because they have KD and Draymond and Clay, but we know what we're there to see with the Golden State Warriors. That is very literally the house that Steph built. Because Steph is so exciting, they literally had to build a new arena because Steph is that great. And we could see the actual monetary value that Steph Curry has brought to this team. And we see what Steph has made in the meantime. That's all I'm saying. That's the only point I'm bringing up. Steph Curry deserves a piece of the Warriors. I live in reality, so I know more than likely that's not going to happen, but I'm just going to put that out there. He's underpaid as it appears to me. All right, and that concludes today's show. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, rate, all that good shit that helps the algorithm find the show. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Go ahead, share it so you guys can share this beautiful experience with each other. Put your friends on. Remember, at BKA Beloved on all platforms so you can join in on the fun. And I got a new video for you every single day. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see y'all next Wednesday.